Alright, back for another edition of Meta Pleb qualifying. Actually, to be honest, I didn't really pleb it. I mean, I should have had a 45.9 in my qualifying, which would have only put me around where either Amiga or Natty were anyway. So kind of a half pleb on this qualifying. I did an okay lap. So quick check of what everyone's starting on. Hensy on softs, Yeesh and Barbara on the mediums. Omega went on the softs. Natty and Alan on the mediums. Myself on softs. Mediums. Mario on the softs in the McLaren. And Thunder Heafy on the mediums in the BMW. So a little bit about why I chose softs. The Supra is not a great car on the medium tire, to be honest. Like, if this race was medium hards, I think the RCZ would have been a better choice than the Supra. So, if you fight the Supras, medium versus medium, soft versus soft, soft versus soft, you're going to lose, because the Supras are so fast on the softs that on the mediums, you have to gain a lot of time on them. And if you are struggling in a slipstream, trying to pass them, it's pretty much going to be impossible to get past sorry, I was going to pause it because we'll talk about that little incident there. If you're on mediums, it's going to be very difficult to pass them because you can't be super aggressive on the infield against them because you don't have that pace delta as much as what you would with the softs versus the mediums. So I went with the softs because while the pack is nice and close in the beginning, I can use that tire advantage to make aggressive moves and get past the Supras and try and pull out a little bit of gap during the one phase of the race where it was going to be possible to pull away from them, essentially. So, up against Natty Gaines here and Matthew Allen, aka Ranger Oz, I'm going to get a little bit of daylight here. I think Ranger was quite sick of having to defend against me because I think in the first two races he had to, and so he kind of sticks it in the middle of the track, but he leaves just enough daylight that I'm gonna just put my car in there, and I mean I'm up alongside him. He kind of turns into me, so I just kind of had to back out of it as I touched the sand. Wasn't going to be able to make a move. But get a nice little drive off that corner. Unfortunately, Natty didn't move over to give me the slip. So, but we managed to stay close enough that we can go for the scent here. Ranger does try and fight it. He really didn't want me to get past in this early phase of the race, at least initially there. However, he's now close enough that he could quite easily breeze back past me, and he did actually do this in, I think, race 2. When I passed him, he immediately went back past me anyway. So I go to follow Natty with the slipstream, and Ranger does decide to give me the bump there. Natty moves over. I think Natty was trying to give me a little bit of slip there, so that was nice of him. I'm a little bit slow there on the apex because of having to take the title line, but nonetheless, we get away with that. Meanwhile, Amiga up behind Hainsey on the softs, Geesh and Barbara on the mediums. So Amiga doing well to hang on to those guys, again with the tire delta. It was a good decision from him to start on the softs. because I believe if he went on the mediums, he just would have gotten swamped up on this first stint. So on the softs, it allows him to kind of hang in the slip of these quicker guys. So we'll come back, take a look if anything interesting happened here with me and Natty. Great camera angle there. So basically I was just really wanting to get as good a run off of this corner as possible, because a dive onto the inside of this left-hander is always a good place to go for a move. Even if you don't get the move there, you can really set them up to have a compromised entry for this corner, which then allows you to go for the move into the tunnel up here. Fortunately, Natty does a really good job and gets good drive onto the bridge, so not able to do anything about it on this lap. And this is really where I was mentally struggling with what I was going to do here. Do I defend against Ranger, or do I trust that Ranger will go for the bump draft again? So move across, I stay to the right, Ranger decides that he's going to bump draft, so that was good. So we duck back over to the slipstream here, Ranger drops back, and we make it through. So you see there, 47.7 on that second lap, not a great lap, about, 7-8 tenths off of what we should be doing on this soft tyre at the beginning of the race. So here, Natty tries to defend the inside there. I try to have a look at doing a little switchback on him, unable to. But now here, we're nice and close to him. He is pulling away, but he defends the inside, and so without having kind of any real momentum towards him, I thought it was going to be too risky into there to go for that move. So we decided to just hang back, and we're going to be in his slipstream again. So we might be able to get him into turn one. Despite the Supra's incredible top speed, if you can kind of get enough of the slipstream, you do start to slowly creep up on him, as you can see here. And then if you're super brave on the brakes, you can go for the move there into turn one. Not quite close enough on this lap though, so that's 2 laps in a row now that Natty has kept ahead of us. So very good driving from him on this opening phase with the mediums. Thankfully, we're not losing a ton of time to Amiga here, because Amiga is behind G-Shoes himself, actually. Not super quick on the medium tires. Kind of compare it to Twitchy. He's 1.2 seconds off the pace of Twitchy on that lap, and 4 tenths the lap earlier. So Natty is going to go deep here. This is actually one little weakness of him on this track, was he was tending to go quite deep into this corner very often. I don't know if it was a deliberate choice of his or not, but yeah, I took the tight line there, and now we're going to be side by side for here. I thought maybe he would give it up, but no, he was fighting for it. So just losing a ton of time here, all over the back of him. And then we get a good run off of there, but just nowhere to go, and so it bumps into the back of him, giving him a momentum boost. So we're going to try and hang it around the outside. Want to try and beat into this apex here. Not able to do it though. And once again, he just gets such a good drive off of the corner, and so he's going to defend it, but we're close enough now that we start to get that momentum shift back. And so send it up the inside, get us stuck onto this inside curb and managed to make it through, and Ranger actually snuck through while all that was happening. So nice opportunistic driving there from Ranger. And now, once again, it's going to be very anxious here for me, as I didn't have any time to make any sort of gap over Ranger, and he's going to have the slipstream. So I moved to the inside. I hope that he's going to give me the bump draft here, but no, he decides he wants to go for the pass, which I must admit does annoy me. He gets clean through, but I'm just going to go and try and brake late there, but no, he's able to get across to the apex. But now we get actually a better exit there off of turn 1. And so now we're right up behind him. I think we might have some contact up here. I shift to 6th in order to make it through here okay. And are we going to send it? Yes, we do. So, I mean, again, it's another case of like, you'll see later on, Natty and I are battling, and whenever one of us sends it, you know, we kind of have the awareness to not turn in. You see at this point, Ranger should know that I'm there, but he's still trying to go for the apex rather than just go for the wider line. So yeah, of course it's a dive from me, but you kind of have to, like, he knows that I'm on the soft tires. I always give the courtesy to everyone else in the pre-race lobby to let them know if I'm going to be on the alternative tire. So I feel like Ranger kind of has to know that I'm going to go for a send there if I'm close enough, and be aware enough to leave the space there so that we don't make contact, so he's not turning into me on the apex. You know, it's quite possible that with that move that I would have overshot, and then he can duck back and get past that way. So you don't need to kind of like turn into that apex. You can allow the person to overshoot and then try and get them on the cutback. Especially given how good the Supra's traction is, you know, compared to the SXZ. That's my thoughts on it anyway. But yeah, we managed to make a big enough gap now that we are going to be safe for the rest of this first stint. And I think actually here, Ranger decides to pivot and he's going to go for the 3-stop. So pits here on lap 5. Hey, McEwen, congratulations. I know some of the other Australians are a bit raw about you dipping out after round 3, but you did the right thing, and anyone else in your position would have done the same, so congrats. So yeah, kind of at this point, I've had to use up a lot of tire battling in those opening laps. If you compare it to how Slot 2 turned out, Slot 2 was a lot cleaner. I was able to run 46s in the first stint while making my way through the traffic. But in this one, because Natty and Ranger fought me a lot harder, we just haven't been able to do that. And so my tires are quite badly worn at this point, and we're kind of not really going to be able to open up the gap as much as I'd like to Natty. There was one slot out of 12 that I'd have improved from winning, so I'm not too fussed about the morality. Yeah, no, you shouldn't have any guilt or anything, dude. Like, you did exactly what anyone should do in that situation. If you have the points on the board, then yeah, you shouldn't race and let others have a chance to catch you. And to be honest, end of the day, Twitchy had the win at Deep Forest, and he binned it on the last lap, so it would have been him in that position if he hadn't done that, and that's not your fault. So first lap kind of in cleanish air, 47.3. Ideally I want to make it to lap 9 on the tyres here. usually that's not a problem, but with the amount of fighting we've done so far, it might be an issue. So we'll skip up ahead. We did 47.5 on lap 7, 47.7 the last 2 laps for Natty Gaines. So you see we've pulled out about a second to him there. Meanwhile, Amiga's doing well. He's holding on to G-shoes on the mediums. This is kind of like, as a mid-pack driver, this is the ideal situation, is if you start on the softer tire and you're able to latch onto the slipstream of one of the front runners and use that to pull you along. Meanwhile, yeah, Twitchy's pace is a lot better than Jisha's. His tire wear, marginally better. Hainsey, obviously, who started on the softs, has run well to be running in the 46s this whole first stint up until lap 7. So at this point, I decide to chuck TC1 on for this final lap, just to try and preserve the tire as much as possible here. Because essentially, so long as you stay above like 5% on the tire, you can drive the car pretty much normally, but as soon as you drop below 5%, it's when you start getting oversteer on basically every single turn. It's like the turn-in oversteer, and that's what really kills the lap time. And it also becomes like a snowball effect of once you start getting that turn-in oversteer, the rears completely start to go like very quickly. So on that lap, we were on parity with Natty. Amiga obviously already pit and picked himself up a 3-second penalty, so that actually closes the gap between Amiga and myself. But Amiga decided to refuel on his first stop, which was it's unusual because you're just giving yourself a heavier car for the rest of the race. Especially the Supra had no issue with being able to do 2 stints on a single fuel tank. Like the RCZ could do it, and the RCZ uses more fuel. So into the pits we come. You'll see there, Hainsey 60 on the fuel, me 59, so RCZ definitely uses more fuel. So out on the mediums as Alan goes past, and Dazza, aka Lawn Patrol 68, I think is his PSN name. Now I have to actually give a shout out to Dazza here. I rather rudely, top-splittish, flashed my lights at him, hoping that he might get out of the way, and he actually did. So, yeah, thank you, Dazza. I don't think I've ever really had a conversation with you. I'm not sure if you've ever gone into the stream or not. Yeah, he gets out of the way there, so thanks for that, mate. I really do appreciate that. Meanwhile, Natty up ahead is going to go all the way up to lap 12. You see how badly the tires start to fall off on the Supra. 48.3, 48.6, 48.6. Meanwhile, we're able to use this as an opportunity to gain about a second a lap on him, because we'll be doing like 47, mid 47s, that kind of thing. 47.4 there on lap 12. This is actually why I wasn't too worried about Amiga. I wasn't sure why he had fallen behind me so far, but I knew that his medium pace just wasn't going to be that great, and that I would likely be able to close up the 3-second gap that he had, and then we would basically be fighting it out. And I think I would have been able to undercut him by a lap on the last stint to get ahead if I hadn't gotten ahead on the medium stint. So this medium stint, pretty quiet to be honest. It was just about trying to drive as consistently as possible. we do 47.4, 47.742, 7.41, 7.84. So able to nail the consistency there, trying to take care of the tires as well as possible. The tire model was definitely a bit strange in that the worn mediums are worse than worn softs. Like, I would say the mediums at this level of wear are comparatively worse to drive than what softs are basically completely fucked. So I mean, you see 48.0 on that previous lap. A 48.0 is like my last lap of a soft stint, and we still have a couple of laps here to go on the mediums. But nonetheless, really, really happy with the consistency. You can see these times are kind of within the range of which they are like degrading the tire. You know, they're within like hundredths of a second of each other. So in the pits this lap, we come out and Mr. Natty Gaines still out ahead of us there. Now at this point, I didn't actually know that Natty had refueled on his first stop. And this season, Natty and I have kind of struck up a bit of a friendship, so we actually were speaking in between race 2 and race 3, and we wondered, you know, to each other, like, why some drivers were refueling on the first stop. And he was like, yeah, it was stupid, you add extra weight to the car. And I was like, yeah, adding extra weight to the car, you know, contributes to more tire wear and gets you stuck in traffic, etc., etc. But then on this race, he goes and refuels on the first pit stop. So I'm not really sure why he did that, because, I mean, it kind of came to fruition. He ended up with like a little bit of traffic, and also yeah, you can see that the tire wear is quite significant here on this stint. So a bit of a strange decision from him, I think, and I think it ends up costing him potentially the victory against me in terms of this pit stop that's coming up. So Natty into the pits as Hainsey, Guy, and Jeesh all pit. Okay, so Hainsey went soft. Oh no, there, it has flipped over. Okay, so yeah, he went soft, medium, soft. So all three on softs here. And I think, to be honest, Guy and Jeesh are just fucking around at this point. But we'll visit that later. And oh, we just missed the pit exit here of Natty. And you'll see this was like much closer than I thought it was going to be, because yeah, I was blindsided by the fact that he had taken fuel on the first stop, and I was watching the time delta, and I was like, okay, well, I'm going to come out 3 or 4 seconds ahead of him. But as it was, we basically come out side by side there. And so I do know that with the Supra on the first lap, it's not super fast. So I really just wanted to nail this lap and break the toe straight away. So I think I had a really good middle sector here. You see, we pull out about a second lead over him. We do a 46.6, which actually for me as a first flying lap is quite quick. Usually I am a little bit slow to warm up the tires. I take it fairly easy on the opening of stints. And I think, yeah, traditionally I've been doing like 46.9s, 47.0s, 47.1s on that first lap before then running 46s through the majority of the rest of the stint. But on this one, I definitely pushed for the quick opening lap there. Hey Theo, McEwen qualified. The New Zealand team won. So it'll be McEwen, Simon Bishop, and Adam. Meanwhile, me and Natty are playing sneakies on the straight. Just trying to do anything to stave off the inevitable attack which is going to be coming from him. As the Super, yeah, just has the extra pace on the softs that the RCZ can't find. And pretty much if you exit the last corner without a 1 second gap, it's almost a sure thing that you're getting overtaken. So managed to keep ahead for that lap, but you see how much he closes up from there to the braking zone of 1. So you remember, I do have a 1 lap older set of tires than what he does. Thankfully, I was mostly able to execute that right-hander onto the bridge flawlessly throughout this race. It's often been a problem corner for me in the past. But actually, one thing that practicing for this race has done for me is I've somehow grasped the moment just before a car is about to slide a lot better than I previously had, because the tire wear is so marginal and you just want to avoid those like micro slides. I really kind of had to train myself on this race to react on that, especially here at turn 1. So I'm downshifting to second a lot later than what I would be traditionally, and that's all just to prevent that slide as you're coming off the brakes. Not because it loses you a lot of time, and especially in this car, you can slide this car around a lot without really losing any time, but it does wear the tires faster, and that's why I'm trying to avoid it. Hey, Wizard. So you see, at this point now, Natty is quite close. My rears have started to degrade enough that I don't really get the advantage here on these slower corners anymore. So at this point, it's all just trying to be as precise with the execution as possible, not to make a mistake, because the slightest mistake and he's going to be close enough to have an overtaking attempt. Meanwhile, at the front, Hainsey has gotten to the lead, and I believe Jish is about to get into P2, maybe not. So Hainsey actually backs out of it there. So now Guy and Jeesh up in first and second. Forty-six 875, 46 850, 46 872, 46 838. So fairly consistent there for me. Got to be happy with those lap times, to be honest. On this final stint, I do have to slightly save fuel. Basically, I handle it by just shifting up to 6th for the last little stretch of the straight. You lose about 3 kilometers per hour doing it, but I tried to do it as much as possible early on in the stint because I knew that later on, as you can see here, we're going to come under attack and we're just going to have to rev fifth out and maximize what little speed we do have in this RCZ. Oh shit. Drifted across a little bit too far there. So this is a very tight one. You see the acceleration there of the Supra is very good. I shift up to 6, so he has to back out more. And then we kind of park it in the middle of the road so he can't get down the inside. He tries to get a better run by taking a wider entry. My tires are definitely worse than what they would ideally be if I wasn't having to defend so hard. Meanwhile, Amiga back, he was about 6 or 7 seconds behind, just didn't have the pace to quite close up on us, so we're going to be able to fight this out without worrying too much about what's going on behind us. Meanwhile, Jeesh and Guy are pulling away from Hainsey quite comfortably. Yeah, no, I think this is when Natty tries to go for a switchback on me, but he just times it a little bit too late, and he ends up, just bumping into the back of me there. It would have been interesting to see if he could have pulled that off if he hadn't bumped me from behind there. Actually, I just noticed he actually picked up damage from that. That's interesting. Because it wasn't a super hard hit, it was just like very glancing, but it was enough to kind of give me a bump draft and kill his momentum. My poor tire. This is usually how the tires are on like the last lap. I had to drive so much harder. Yeah, I did a 48 there on lap 28. Very unusual. And I think Jason Twitcher here are just fucking around. So if I just come back here. I did notice that for the first time in several laps, I did start to pull away from him on that little straight there. So I was like, okay, if I can just get a nice entry here onto the bridge and pull enough away, if I can survive this one last run down to turn one, then I should have enough to stay ahead of him. And so we had a nice little gap coming into this last sequence of corners. But he actually did manage to make up time through the tunnel and chicane there. So I decide I'm gonna just have to stay to the inside here. It's not worth the risk. He brakes extra late. Tries to go for the cutback. He gets the little snap of oversteer there. But now he has a very good run. And again, gonna have to just go to the inside here and hope that he can't get any kind of switchback. He just doesn't have the front tires there to do it. My left rear is dead at this point. Now every single one of these turns is a risk for spinning out. Okay, Twitchy just messing around, Jeesh messing around. We'll come back to that though. Jeesh gets into the lead, it looks like. Hainsey up to P2. God only knows what's happening up there between them. And then Hainsey's in P1 now, and Guy and Jeesh are second and third. And yeah, then unfortunately here I end up hitting the rev limiter, and then... Okay, so that's interesting. I thought he was up alongside me and that I'd pinched him into the wall, but it looks like he just kind of went into the wall on his own there. Let's see, yeah. You'll see here I had sweaty hands and I ended up missing the upshift. This could have been a fatal mistake. Just there, and I think what happens is much like my run on John in the first slot, he's just surprised by the sudden lack of momentum. And so he goes to go across, but my car's already drifting across there. So he's almost going to get me there on the line. Pretty close. Okay, let's see what happened here. Okay, so Jeesh goes to remove and hits Twitchy. What is that? Okay, and then Hainsey's glitching around. Okay, then Hainsey hits the wall, of all things. Yeah, I don't know. I think at this point, yeah, Barbara and Jeesh were just really not taking it seriously. You can see here by the finishing time. I think he ends up with a 29, yeah. So it was like 15 seconds slower than what Twitchy did in slot 2. So Amiga ends up collecting P6. I think, although he picked up the 3-second penalty, it wasn't enough to really make a difference. I don't think he would have been in the fight for 4th and 5th, just based on his medium stint. Cedar did a decent job. I haven't seen him for a while. Obviously the front tyre there just went off at the end. It's still P7 in his first race for a while. John 27. That's interesting that it was actually his rear tyre which went fully red before his front left. It's unusual for the Supra. Everyone else was usually wearing out the fronts quicker. That was me in the RCZ. DP Mario in the McLaren. Pretty decent tyres still left on that, actually. It's good to know, because I'll probably be going with McLaren for the official season. Alright, so that was slot 3. We ended up with 296 points, which did allow me to jump Natty Gaines. I think I ended up finishing 1 point ahead of him in the standings, but then, of course, Hainsey picking up that 330 got him just up above both of us, I think. Maybe like 16 or 26 points or something. Oh, hey GT. Unfortunately, you just missed all the excitement, and that's me pretty much done for the night. Won't be doing the Toyota Gazoo Cup tomorrow. Got some stuff on, and I haven't entered the Gazoo Racing Cup at all yet, so probably just give that one a miss, to be honest. McLaren felt good to drive. I used it in the last round. Oh, okay, cool. Yeah, I did like a test for this race like a week ago, and for me, yeah, the decision was between the McLaren, the RCZ, and the Supra. The RCZ was the quickest for me, though, so that's why I went with it. It certainly would have been interesting to see how the RCZ had gone in the hands of, someone like Twitchy against the Supras. Because, I mean, in race 2, I think it was, I finished like 3.3 seconds behind Ranger. So, to be honest, like, I was in the RCZ battling the same people who I'm usually battling, but they were in the Supra and I was in the RCZ. And it's not like they were just like super quicker than me. So, obviously the RCZ was capable of competing. Yeah, you'll see there's Ranger. I think he finished about 2.5 seconds ahead in the end. So 54.29 there for Ranger, and I think I finished on a 31 or maybe a 32. Yeah, 31.7. So 2.5 seconds back from Ranger, and he's in what's, everyone considered the OP car. Yeah, to be honest, I think to finish only that far behind him shows that the RCZ was competitive. It's just nobody chose to drive it except for me. Yeah, the McLaren's definitely got leading traction out of pretty much any Group 3 car. You can certainly stamp on the throttle. Once you get up to the higher splits, that kind of ability to just stamp on the throttle in the McLaren it's less of an advantage because the guys at the top level can get on the throttle of like the Super or the GTR and not wheel spin like the guys in the lower splits do. But yeah, nonetheless, I really am considering McLaren for this season. I would go with the RCZ, like I would go with Peugeot, but because the Group 4 Peugeot is the FF, I just really don't enjoy driving it at all. So most likely I'll end up choosing the McLaren. But anyway, guys, thanks for coming and watching. Good luck with Toyota tomorrow for anyone who's doing that. And yeah, otherwise we'll see you for Manu in, like 4 days' time. All right, peace.